For over a decade, Wladimir Klitschko ruled the heavyweight division with an iron fist. His dominance was unquestioned, his technique unmatched, with a powerful jab crushing right hand and near-flawless strategy. He dismantled challengers with ease. He was a champion built on discipline, precision, and intelligence. But in boxing, no reign lasts forever now. At 55 years old, Klitschko's life is far from the bright lights of championship glory, while his brother Vitaly remains a political figure in Ukraine. Wladimir has largely stepped away from boxing, focusing on business and philanthropy. But with the ongoing war in Ukraine, his country's future, and his own remains uncertain, this is the story of Wladimir Klitschko, the man who controlled the heavyweight division until he lost it all born on March 25th, 1976 in Kazakhstan, Soviet Union. Wladimir Klitschko grew up in a disciplined military household. His father, a high-ranking officer in the Soviet Air Force, instilled a sense of order and resilience in both Wladimir and his older brother Vitaly. Though born in Kazakhstan, Wladimir was raised in Ukraine. The Klitschko family eventually settled from a young age. Both brothers were drawn to sports, but for Wladimir, nothing compared to the allure of boxing. He idolized legendary fighters like Muhammad Ali and Joe Louis, studying their styles and dreaming of one day joining their ranks. Even as a teenager, his physical gifts were obvious. Standing tall with an athletic build, he possessed raw power and an intellect that would later define his career. But unlike many heavyweights, Klitschko didn't rely solely on brute strength. His approach was methodical, his movements calculated, and his understanding of the sport unmatched. His amateur career began to flourish in the early 1990s as he quickly rose through the ranks of European boxing. He displayed a level of discipline and technical prowess that set him apart from his peers competing in international tournaments. Klitschko showcased his ability to break down opponents with precision, using his jab as both a weapon and a shield. Coaches and trainers knew they had something special on their hands. A young fighter who combined size, skill, and intelligence in a way rarely seen in the heavyweight division. Wladimir Klitschko wasn't just another boxer. He was a student of the sport. His size, intelligence, and discipline made him a force to be reckoned with even before turning professional. But his true breakthrough came on the grandest stage of them all. That breakthrough came in 1996 at the Atlanta Olympics, where Klitschko competed in the super heavyweight division at just 20 years old. He entered the tournament as a relative, unknown on the world stage. However, with each passing fight, he demonstrated his dominance, using his superior reach footwork and counterpunching ability to overwhelm his opponents in the gold medal match. Klitschko faced off against Piao Wolgram of Tonga. It was a battle of giants. But Klitschko's skill and tactical precision were on full display. He outboxed Wolfgram over the course of the fight, winning a unanimous decision and securing the Olympic gold medal. It was a moment that changed everything overnight. He became one of the most sought-after prospects in boxing. Winning Olympic gold wasn't just about prestige. It was a launching pad to professional stardom. The victory put Klitschko on the radar of major boxing promoters, all eager to sign the towering Ukrainian. It also solidified his belief that he was destined for greatness in the professional ranks. Later that year, he turned professional, making his debut in Germany under the guidance of top trainers. Unlike many Olympic champions who struggle in the transitioned to the pro ranks. Klitschko adapted quickly. His jab was sharp, his footwork was fluid, and his knockout power was undeniable. He racked up wins in dominant fashion, often finishing fights in the early rounds, when Wladimir Klitschko turned professional in 1996. He was seen as the future of the heavyweight division, standing at 6 feet 6 inches with an 81-inch reach. He had all the physical tools to dominate the sport. His early career was a showcase of knockout power fight after fight. He dismantled opponents with ease. His jab was a weapon, his right hand was devastating, and his movement was impressive for a man of his size. By the early 2000s, he had already claimed a heavyweight world title, and many believed he was on the verge of a historic reign. However, boxing is an unforgiving sport, and Klitschko would soon face the harsh reality of what it meant to be at the top for all his talent and technical skill. There was one lingering question about him. Could he take a punch? The first major test of his chin came on March 8th, 2003, against South African heavyweight Corey Sanders, a dangerous puncher with a reputation for explosive power. The first major setback, Corey Sanders 2-0-3. Klitschko entered the fight as the overwhelming favorite. Many saw Sanders as an aging veteran who had little chance of surviving against the younger, stronger, and more skilled Ukrainian. But within seconds of the opening bell, it became clear that this fight would not go as expected. In the first round, Sanders caught Klitschko with a crushing left hand. The Ukrainian went down, hard, visibly shaken, got back up, but Sanders was relentless, unleashing a barrage of punches that left clinch. Stumbling before the first round ended, he was knocked down again. The second round was even worse. Klitschko looked lost, unable to recover from the punishment he had taken. Sanders, smelling blood, delivered another brutal combination that sent Klitschko crashing to the canvas. For the final time, the fight was over in just 2 rounds. Wladimir Klitschko had been humiliated, and the boxing world was stunned. The knockout loss to Corey Sanders wasn't just a defeat. It was an exposure of Klitschko's biggest weakness. Critics were ruthless, calling him chinny, and questioning whether he had the heart to survive against true warriors. So-called next great heavyweight champion had just been demolished in front of the world, determined to bounce back clinch. Go took another big fight a year later against the tough and durable Layman Brewster. This time, it wasn't a one-punch knockout that ended his night. It was complete exhaustion. Klitschko dominated the early rounds, landing his signature jab at will and rocking Brewster with powerful combinations. It seemed like he was on his way to an easy victory. But then something strange happened. By the 4th round, Klitschko's energy levels dropped dramatically. His punches slowed down. His legs became unsteady, and he struggled to even keep his hands up in the 5th round. Brewster seized the opportunity and unloaded on a defenseless Klitschko, sending him to the canvas. Klitschko barely beat the count, but he was in no condition to continue. The referee waved off the fight, and for the second time in just over a year, Klitschko had suffered a shocking defeat. 2 brutal losses in back-to-back years left Klitschko's career in shambles. Fans and analysts alike were convinced that he simply wasn't cut out for greatness. The labels came quickly. Glass chin. No heart, mentally weak. He had all the tools. But when it mattered most, he crumbled under pressure. Some even suggested that he should retire after all. History had shown that heavyweights who suffered knockout losses like these rarely recovered. He was viewed as just another overhyped fighter who had been exposed. The boxing world was ready to write off Wladimir Klitschko. He had the skills. But could he take a punch? Could he survive against true warriors in the ring? Many believed his weaknesses had been exposed. But with the help of one legendary trainer, everything changed. Klitschko knew he had to make a drastic change if he wanted to salvage his career. That change came in the form of legendary trainer Emmanuel Steward. Steward was a Hall of Fame trainer, best known for transforming Lennox Lewis into one of the most dominant heavyweights of his era. He had a keen eye for refining the skills of tall, powerful fighters, and when he saw Klitschko, he saw a project with untapped potential under Steward's guidance. Klitschko reinvented himself, gone were the reckless exchanges and unnecessary risks. Instead adopted a style that maximized his physical advantages, an impenetrable defense, a dominant jab, and a reliance on calculated aggression. Steward helped Klitschko understand that he didn't need to prove his toughness by slugging it out with opponents. Instead, he needed to control fights from a distance, using his jab to break opponents down, before landing his devastating right hand. Slowly but surely, Klitschko climbed back to the top. He put together a string of impressive wins, stopping top contenders, and proving that he had learned from his past mistakes. He started to dominate fights with a level of control and precision rarely seen. In the heavyweight division by 2006, he won the IBF heavyweight title, marking the beginning of what would become one of the most dominant reigns in boxing history. With each fight, he silenced more critics. The man once labeled as having no chin and no heart was now the most disciplined and technical heavyweight in the sport. Klitschko's transformation was complete with Emmanuel Steward. In his corner, he became a different fighter, calculated, disciplined, and nearly impossible to beat the man. Once considered a liability in the ring, had now become a strategic mastermind. And soon the heavyweight division would belong to him by 2006. Wladimir Klitschko had rebuilt his career and was ready to reclaim his place among the heavyweight elite. He faced Chris Bird for the IBF heavyweight title. A fighter known for his slick movement and defensive prowess, Klitschko, now a different fighter, under the guidance of Emmanuel Steward, put on a clinic. He dominated Bird. With his signature jab, controlled the distance masterfully, and eventually knocked him out in the 7th round. With that victory, Wladimir Klitschko was once again a world champion. This was only the beginning over the next decade. Klitschko would go on to unify the heavyweight division, collecting belts and dismantling opponents with surgical precision. His reign saw him hold the WB, AIBF, WB, OIBO, and Ring Magazine titles, simultaneously cementing himself as the undisputed king of the heavyweights. Under Steward, Klitschko had perfected his craft. His jab was a weapon, one of the most powerful and effective in boxing history. He used it to control fights, keeping opponents at a distance, frustrating them before setting up his devastating right hand. His right cross became a hammer, capable of ending fights in an instant when he chose to let it go. When opponents tried to get inside, Klitschko's clinching ability made him nearly impossible to hit. Cleanly fight after fight, story remained the same. Klitschko would slowly break his opponents down, forcing them into a battle of endurance. They could never win. Some fighters made it to the later rounds. Few could withstand the mental and physical toll of fighting Klitschko. Between 2006 and 2015, Klitschko successfully defended his title, 18 times the second longest streak in heavyweight history. Behind only Joe Louis, he systematically took apart some of the best heavyweights of his era, including David Haye 11. The brash British heavyweight talked a big game, even showing up to press conferences with a t-shirt depicting himself decapitating Klitschko. But in the ring, Haye had no answers. Klitschko neutralized him with his jab, won nearly every round, and left him looking foolish. Alexander Povetkin was 2013. A decorated amateur and an undefeated heavyweight, at the time Povetkin was seen as a serious threat. Clinch KO knocked him down 4 times and won every round with ease. Kubrat Pulev 14. One of the hardest punches in the division, Pulev was expected to give Klitschko trouble. Instead, Klitschko dismantled him, knocking him out cold with a crushing left hook. It didn't matter who stepped into the ring. With Klitschko, he always found a way to win for all of his dominance. Klitschko had his fair share of critics. Many boxing fans found his fights boring. His methodical, calculated approach meant there was little drama in his bouts. Unlike the heavyweight legends of the day, past Ali Foreman, Tyson Holyfield, Klitschko didn't engage in wild slugfests or epic wars. Instead, he controlled every aspect of a fight, draining the excitement out of it. For some fans, his reliance on the jab, constant clenching, and lack of explosive knockouts led many to call him robotic. Some fans even blamed him for the decline in heavyweight boxing's popularity during his reign as interest in the division dwindled. But the truth was, Klitschko didn't care about putting on a show. Cared about winning. Wladimir Klitschko turned the heavyweight division into his personal kingdom. His jab was a weapon, his right hand was a hammer, and his clinch made him nearly impossible to hit. He wasn't the most exciting fighter, but he was dominant, unbeatable. Or so it seemed. Another factor that made Klitschko's reign unique was the presence of his older brother, Witold Klitschko. Witold was also a world champion, holding the WBC heavyweight title during much of Vladimir's reign. Together, they ruled the heavyweight division for over a decade, never fighting each other due to a promise they made to their mother. Some fans believed that Witold was actually the superior fighter. He had an iron chin, a more aggressive fighting style, and had never been truly beaten in the ring. His 2 losses came from injuries. This led to endless debates over who the better Klitschko was, though Wladimir remained the one who unified the division for nearly a decade. Wladimir. Klitschko had been unbeatable. He had ruled the heavyweight division with an iron fist, dispatching challenges with ease. But in 2015, he faced an opponent unlike any he had ever encountered. Tyson Fury. Fury wasn't just bigger than Klitschko. He was younger, faster, and completely unpredictable in the lead-up to the fight. Fury got inside Klitschko's head like no other challenger. Before he mocked him, ridiculed his style, and even played mind games at press conferences. Many fans and analysts believed Klitschko would do what he always did, control the fight with his jab and win another easy decision. But when the fight finally happened, something was different for nearly a decade. Wladimir Klitschko was the most dominant force in heavyweight boxing he ruled, with an iron fist dismantling opponents with surgical precision, never letting anyone come close to dethroning him. His punch output was shockingly low. Through 12 rounds, he landed just 52 punches, an all-time low for a heavyweight title fight of that magnitude. By the time the final bell rang, it was clear to everyone watching. Wladimir Klitschko had been dethroned. He didn't need to hear the judge's decision. He already knew Tyson Fury won by unanimous decision, 115 to 112, 115 to 112, 116 to 111. The once invincible Klitschko had been outclassed, and the heavyweight division had a new king for years. Wladimir Klitschko was untouchable, but when he faced Tyson Fury, he looked lost, hesitant and powerless. For the first time in over a decade, the heavyweight division had a new champion. Klitschko was humiliated. Losing was one thing, but losing without even putting up a real fight, that was unacceptable. He immediately activated his rematch clause, determined to avenge his defeat and reclaim his throne. But Fury had his own issues. Over the next several months, the new champion's life spiraled out of control. He struggled with depression, substance abuse, and legal troubles. He was stripped of his belts, and the rematch never happened. As Fury's career unraveled, Klitschko was left in limbo. The rematch was continuously delayed, and the months turned into years. Klitschko was no longer in his prime. He had ruled the division for so long, But Father Time had finally caught up with him. The inactivity combined with the physical toll of his long career had taken away his edge. But he wasn't done yet. If he couldn't get a rematch with Fury, he would prove himself against the next rising star of the heavyweight division. Anthony Joshua for over a decade, Wladimir Klitschko was the heavyweight division's undisputed ruler. He had outlasted challengers, adapted to new styles, and refined his craft into an almost unbeatable formula. But in 2015, Tyson Fury had exposed cracks in his armor, and now at age 41, Klitschko stood at a crossroads fight on for one last shot at redemption, or walk away from the sport that made him a legend. Klitschko chose to fight with Fury out of the picture. Due to personal issues, a new force had emerged in heavyweight boxing. A young, powerful, and marketable superstar named Anthony Joshua, a 2012 Olympic gold medalist. Joshua had everything. Klitschko once had youth power speed, and the aura of an undefeated fighter. He had blasted through every opponent. Put in front of him, winning the IBF heavyweight title, and becoming Britain's newest boxing hero. Klitschko saw Joshua as his ticket back to the top. If he could defeat the young star, he could reclaim his throne. If he lost, it would be clear that his time had passed. The fight was set for April the 29th, 2017, at Wembley Stadium in London, over 90. Oro fans packed the arena, making it one of the biggest heavyweight fights in decades. The stakes couldn't have been higher. As the opening bell rang, both fighters came out cautious, respecting each other's power. Klitschko, always the technician, relied on his jab, measuring distance, and waiting for the perfect opportunity to land his powerful right hand. Joshua, the younger and more explosive fighter, was patient, knowing that one mistake could cost him everything. In the fifth round, first moment of real danger arrived. Joshua exploded with a ferocious combination, sending Klitschko to crashing to the canvas. The stadium erupted. It looked like the beginning of the end for the former champion. But Klitschko wasn't done yet. Instead of folding under the pressure, he did something nobody expected. He fought back moments later. Klitschko rocked Joshua with a thunderous right hand, forcing the young champion to hold on for dear life. The tide had turned. Klitschko dominated the remainder of the round, using his experience to weather the storm. Then, in the sixth round, Klitschko landed one of the most devastating punches of his career. A perfect right hand that sent Joshua sprawling to the canvas. For the first time in his career, Joshua was knocked down. The crowd fell silent. Klitschko stood in the center of the ring, knowing this was his moment to finish the fight. He had Joshua hurt. He had an opening to become heavyweight champion once again, but he hesitated. Klitschko, usually known for his killer instinct, didn't press forward. Instead of going for the knockout, he stuck to his calculated, patient approach, allowing Joshua to recover. That decision would cost him everything. As the fight wore on, Joshua regained his composure. His youth power and conditioning began to take over. Klitschko, now 41 years old, had given everything he had, but his body couldn't keep up with the relentless pace. Then, in the 11th round, the inevitable happened. Joshua unleashed a devastating uppercut that nearly lifted Klitschko off his feet. It was the kind of punch that ended careers. The former champion stumbled backward, and Joshua followed up with a brutal assault. Klitschko hit the canvas twice before the referee stepped in to stop the fight. It was over. Wladimir Klitschko had fought bravely. He had given one of the greatest performances of his career. But in the end, time had caught up with him. The young lion had taken out the old king in one of the greatest heavyweight fights of the modern era. Wladimir Klitschko gave everything he had, but in the end, time had caught up with him. The young lion had taken out the old king after the fight the boxing world waited for. Klitschko's next move. Would he fight on? Would he chase another shot at the title for months? Speculation swirled a rematch with Joshua was on the table, and many fans wondered if Klitschko would make one last run at glory. But deep down, Klitschko knew the truth he had fought for over 20 years. He had been champion for over a decade. He had nothing left to prove on August 3rd, too. 0:17. Wladimir Klitschko announced his retirement from boxing in an emotional farewell. He thanked his fans, his trainers, and the sport that had given him everything. He walked away as one of the most dominant and successful heavyweights of all time, but also one of the most controversial. Wladimir Klitschko's reign was unlike any other in heavyweight history. He was dominant but not always exciting. He was methodical but not always aggressive. He ruled with intelligence, not brute force. Some fans hailed him as one of the greatest heavyweights ever, pointing to his longevity, discipline, and technical mastery. Others dismissed him as boring and robotic, arguing that he never truly had a defining win over a legendary opponent in his prime. But love him or hate him, one thing was undeniable. He ruled the heavyweight division for over a decade. Klitschko's career was a testament to discipline, intelligence, and longevity. He wasn't the flashiest. He wasn't the most exciting. But he was dominant. And in the end, he walked away on his own terms, leaving behind a legacy that will be debated for generations. For over a decade, Wladimir Klitschko stood at the top of the boxing world. He was a dominant champion, a millionaire, a respected figure in sports and business. But as time passed, his post-boxing life did not unfold the way many had expected. At first, things seemed promising. Klitschko transitioned into business, investing in real estate, sports ventures, and various entrepreneurial projects. He even created a personal development program called Challenge Management, aimed at helping people push their limits in life and business. But the reality was far more complicated. Despite his intelligence and discipline, many of his investments failed, costing him millions. The world of business was not as structured as the boxing ring, and Klitschko found himself struggling to maintain the wealth he had once built. His personal life was no better for years. Klitschko had been in a high-profile relationship with Hollywood actress Hayden Panettiere. They had a daughter together and were seen as a power couple, the world champion and the Hollywood starlet. But behind closed doors, things were falling apart. Reports surfaced of a toxic and unstable relationship. The couple split in 2018, and Panettiere later revealed that she was struggling with substance abuse and personal demons. The Klitschko brothers became symbols of Ukrainian resistance, speaking out against Russia's aggression and standing by their country. But the war took a toll on both of them, emotionally, financially, and physically, at 55 years old. Klitschko is no longer the dominant champion he once was. His wealth has been impacted by failed investments and the economic collapse in Ukraine. His personal life remains complicated, and the war has changed everything, forcing him into a role he never imagined. Once the king of the heavyweight division, today, Wladimir Klitschko's life is a shadow of what it once was. His fortune has dwindled, his personal life has crumbled, and the war in Ukraine has taken a deep toll on his homeland. At 55, he is no longer the dominant champion he once was, but rather a man trying to find his place in the world after boxing.